Jim Schultz here for Calculated Risk, and don't forget, before we get started, the best ways you can help us are by liking the video or subscribing to the channel. Either one of those guys would really help us out a ton. So how do you trade a runaway bull market? If you're watching this video when it was released in June of 2026, it's like, man, this is the market that we are in right now. Sure, we've had a couple of blips and a couple of downdrafts and what have you, but man, it has been incredibly strong to the upside. Well, the truth is, our biggest risk as a premium seller is going to be the outlier move that gets away from us, whether it be to the upside or the downside. So whether you're trading a runaway bull market or a runaway bear market, everything we're going to talk about today for the next 2 or 3 or 27 minutes applies to both of those guys. So let's dive right in. Let's go through 3 things that you can do to help protect yourself against a runaway bull market or a runaway bear market. All right, so day to day, I'm going to say, you may or may not agree with me, the markets are pretty random and pretty unpredictable. And when you start thinking about asset pricing, you start thinking about what's controlling asset price moves. I mean, you've got geometric Brownian motion, you've got the efficient markets hypothesis, you got positive drift, you got your volatility shocks, you got all these different mathematical models that are kind of pointing to, all right, there's a high degree of randomness and unpredictability. So a lot of the time, the market's just kind of wiggling, it's just kind of waggling, it's just kind of moving around a little bit on either side, and that really helps us as premium sellers. And even if volatility ticks up, which is what we want because it makes the premiums on the options that much richer, still, it's very rare that we get caught in a runaway move that just has no signs of slowing down. But that does happen. You get that one-sided move where it's just wiggling and no waggling, or it's just zigging and no zaggling. And so what do you do in that scenario? Here are 3 things that you can do before you ever put the trade on. The first thing is your position size. The second thing is your capital allocation. And the third thing is going to be your strategy selection. Because remember, what price does day to day, it's out of our control. So we need to focus on what we can control. We need to control the controllable. And in my opinion, position size, capital allocation, and strategy selection are all within our control. And all of these things happen before the trade is even live. So number 1, first and foremost, is going to be position size. Right? Everybody wants to talk about, Jim, how do I hedge against a big move against me? How do I hedge against a big drop or a big pop or whatever? And my answer is always the same. It has to begin with position size. This is the most kind of organic way that you can hedge against things that move against you, by controlling that position size on order entry. You want to be small enough such that it frees you up to do whatever you want to do later on. Like if you want to later on and add on additional hedges, you can do that. If you just want to kind of lean into the position size and let the position kind of, meander off into the distance, you can do that too. But if you are too big on entry, it really just kind of handcuffs you in terms of the different things that are available to you and at your disposal. So position sizing is number 1. Because remember, we're out of the money premium sellers, right? We're selling 30 delta, we're selling 40 delta, whatever. But once that position spills over to now where it's in the money, now the deltas begin to grow. So now they're not 40, they're 50. Now they're not 50, they're 60, right? You've got a naked position on, those deltas are starting to grow. So what was a very small, kind of innocent position at 25 or 35 deltas is now all of a sudden 75 deltas, and it's going to feel a lot bigger than it was at order entry. And so if you don't size on entry so that you're okay when the position does go in the money, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice, and it is going to show up at times when you probably really don't want it to show up. So that's why when it comes to position size, generally speaking, define risk 1 to 3%. That's a great reference point. 1 to 3% if you have a larger account. So let's say you're at 100,000 or more, you could probably even be below the lower end of that range. If you have a smaller account, so let's say maybe 10 or 12,000 or less, then you might be actually above the upper end of that range. You may have to go to 4% or 5% or 6%. But 1 to 3% for defined risk is a great reference point. For undefined risk, 3 to 7% in terms of your buying power allocation. Again, you have more capital, you can probably be below the lower end of that range. You have less capital, you may have to kind of creep up to maybe 8% or 9% or 10%. I probably wouldn't go above 10% because, again, you want to be small enough on Nifty such that you can go ahead and manage the position objectively and do all the things that you want to do and think with a level-headed, mind all throughout the process and not get emotionally charged up. So the second thing, capital allocation. Right now, ceteris paribus, which is all things being equal for all my Latin groupies that might be watching the show here today, but you guys already knew that. Capital allocation, when it comes to how much capital we're using, obviously we're going to prefer less capital relative to more capital. We would love to get where we're trying to go using less capital rather than more capital. I mean, that goes without saying. I mean, that's a given. But there are times when we might have to deploy a bit more capital to get where we're trying to go. So we might need to tick up when it comes to capital allocation. Just be careful that if you're concerned about guarding against a big move against you, whether it's to the upside or the downside, both would apply. You're always going to be better off if you have less capital deployed. And so that's why, generally speaking, we like to live somewhere between 25 to 50% most of the time. There are certainly times and places where you'll be, above the upper end of that range, and maybe even times and places when you'll be below the lower end of that range. But if you are really concerned and you want to guard against and protect against a runaway bull market or bear market for that matter, I would live on the lower end of that range, maybe be around 25 to 35%. And then thirdly, the strategies that you select. So obviously, if you go define risk, if you go vertical spreads and iron condors and diagonals and butterflies, they're going to have built-in mechanisms into the actual strategies that are going to protect you against runaway moves against you. They have kind of outlier risk mitigation built into the structure of the strategy because they are defined risk by nature. So that's going to be the easiest way to protect against the outlier moves against you. You have the gimme of the protection against that runaway move, but of course, we know it's been said before, and I don't know who said it, but let me know. If you know who said it, put it in the comments below this video, because it is a catchy jingle. For every gimme, there's a gotcha. So what's the gotcha? Well, one of the gotchas with defined risk, in fact, I can actually think of two. Number one, you don't have the unfiltered exposure to the Greeks. So you're not going to get, the pure positive theta. You're not going to get the pure negative vega. So that's going to kind of slow down what you're trying to do in terms of your Greek exposure. But then number two, they're going to be much harder to adjust. These strategies are much more difficult to adjust if things do go against you, and you kind of want to maneuver a little bit. You kind of want to manage your way out of these guys a little bit. Much harder to do with a vertical spread or iron condor or even a butterfly when it comes to the adjustments relative to undefined risk strategies. But if you do want to do an undefined risk strategy, a great strategy, which is my favorite strategy, is the out of the money short put. Right? Again, specifically if we're in a runaway bull market, a lot of times you're like, man, I kind of want to participate in this. Like, man, I want to be a part of this. Like, I want to take advantage of this super strong market, but I don't really want to buy the tippity top. Like, I don't really want to be the guy that buys the NASDAQ at 31.3 and that's the top tick for the next 7 or 8 years or, 7 or 8 months or 7 or 8 weeks or 7 or 8 days or whatever. And so one of the strategies that you can deploy in this type of market is by selling an out of the money put. It is a naked strategy. You do have undefined risk, but if you're in a scenario where you're like, man, I'd be happy taking the stock or taking the index at that level, then you just collect the premium in the event that the market goes nowhere or it even goes higher. And if you are in a scenario where the option does go in the money and you are going to be assigned at that price, you're still better off than if you had bought the stock at that tippity top price point. So as an active trader, right, we can control a lot of parts of the process, but there are certain things that we can't control. We can't control the price. We don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. But we can control our position size, and we can control our capital allocation, and we can control our strategy selection. And so put those things in place, let the math take over, and give the probabilities a chance to play out. And I'll see you guys next time.